Aide with the latest news. In a major development in U.S. tariffs, President Donald Trump has exempted key consumer electronics, including smartphones and computers, from his steep taxes. These goods are largely sold to the U.S. from China, which still faces huge tariffs from Washington.
Hello, everybody.
Another reprieve from the U.S.'s sweeping global tariffs. Washington now granting exclusions to the levy for select electronics entering the United States, including smartphones, laptops, computer monitors, and semiconductor-related equipment, a lot of which come from China. It's a big break for tech giants like Apple, who depend on its Chinese production base to make some of its flagship products.
This shows that clearly the administration is aware of the concerns from the big tech industry, and it's also clear that the tech industry has been continually to protest or lobby about all this tariff over the past 2 weeks, because this is a big problem for their global strategy, global supply chain management.
The U.S. has imposed its highest tariffs on China, with the so-called reciprocal tariff rate, which now stands at 125%. That's on top of a 20% duty on all Chinese imports issued months ago, a penalty Washington says is related to its domestic fentanyl crisis. Chinese electronics included in the latest exemption will still face that 20% duty. But for other countries like Taiwan, the specified tech is free from Trump's tariffs, at least for now. U.S. President Trump saying he will have more info on chip tariffs soon.
I'll give you that answer on Monday.
Chips have so far been exempted from Taiwan's 32% tariff from the U.S., now paused for 90 days. Washington's latest exceptions bringing some relief to Taiwan's electronics-dominated economy. Last year, the country's top exports to the U.S. were automatic data processing equipment, chips, computer-related and communications-related parts. Premier Zhou Rongtai says maintaining Taiwan's industrial edge was brought up in Taipei's first virtual negotiation with Washington.
我们把国家的基本利益拿出来谈，让我们能够维持产业的竞争力。
With just 90 days to strike a deal, economists say Taiwan must address non-tariff issues, like Washington's criticism of what it calls Taiwanese currency manipulation, restrictions on U.S. meat and cars, and its large trade imbalance at the heart of Trump's concerns.
It always been very, very challenging to reduce the trade deficit between U.S. and Taiwan, because there's just so much export regarding semiconductor, computing, computer-related products, right? The number is very, very hard to compensate from other purchases from Taiwan.
So far, Taiwan says talks with the U.S. are proceeding, quote, smoothly, and that it will have more calls soon to secure deals in a still evolving situation, including a looming announcement from Trump on the country's most valuable sector. Ethan Pan and Joyce for TaiwanPlus. Chinese President Xi Jinping is expected to visit Southeast Asian countries Cambodia, Vietnam, and Malaysia. It comes as Cambodia faces the harshest U.S. tariffs outside of China. The levy's been delayed for now, but as Chris Gorin reports, the fear is very real for factory workers.
In Phnom Penh's busy streets, Nam Lung grabs sweet potatoes on her way to work at a factory for American clothing brand Levi's. It's one of 2 jobs she works to support herself and her sister, jobs she fears could vanish under new U.S. tariffs.
If there's no negotiations to remove these tariffs, it will be hard for investors to keep their factories here. If they shut it down, we'll lose our jobs, which will be a big problem for me.
Among Donald Trump's tariffs announced last week, Cambodia received the most punishing of all, a 49% tax on goods it exports to the U.S. The U.S. is Cambodia's largest export destination, accounting for 40% of its total exports. The tariff has been postponed for 90 days, but that's little comfort to workers like Nam Lung.
My sister here is sick. She can't work, so she lives with me. If I have no work, no income, then I die, and she dies too.
At the factory, she makes about $300 a month, but she says it's not enough to support herself and her family. At night, she works a second job at a beauty salon. And as U.S. tariffs shake Southeast Asia, Chinese President Xi Jinping is stepping in, announcing today that he will make state visits to Cambodia, Vietnam, and Malaysia. Beijing's attention may seem like a lifeline to workers like Nam Lung, who just want to work.
I strongly appeal to our government to negotiate with rich countries like the US on ending the tariffs so that investors will stay in Cambodia, which will save our jobs.
For now, Nam Lung continues working, day and night, hoping that someone is listening. Alex Chen, Izzy Wells, and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
A former assistant to a foreign minister is being held incommunicado, accused of spying for China. The alleged spy used to work for then Foreign Minister Joseph Wu, who currently heads the National Security Council. The suspect is believed to have passed sensitive information to China. Wu's office would not comment on the case, saying only that anyone who betrays the country should be punished. Convenience stores could be included in Taiwan's disaster response preparations. That's according to a report by the Guardian newspaper. These stores are everywhere in Taiwan, with over 13,000 around the country. The Guardian cites official sources as saying the government is looking into designating them as emergency depots in the event of a conflict with China. They would provide food and medicine to civilians and help pass on information from the government. The Guardian says it reached out to convenience store operators about the report, but have not received a response. It's been a year since Taiwan was hit by its strongest earthquake in over 2 decades. It devastated lives and livelihoods across the East Coast. Reese Ayers revisits businesses in Hualien, once a top tourist attraction, to see how they're coping with the effects it's had on their income.
A traditional truku welcome for visitors to this indigenous activity center and restaurant in eastern Taiwan. But right now, visitors are few and far between. Despite being near some of the country's top tourist attractions, Darjeeling Tribal House has been starved of income since a deadly 7.2 magnitude earthquake struck here a year ago. It devastated lives and businesses all along the coast. And this centre's proprietor, Sukin Kyosi, says there is still a ways to go before business returns to normal.
去年真的是不要算，因为没有 income， 到目前为止只有上升回来到15%左右。
It's a story repeated across Hualien, home to some of Taiwan's most stunning scenery. Strongly dependent on tourism, everyone here is feeling the pinch. From restaurants to cafes, hotels to market vendors. Dongdamen night market is usually flooded with tourists, but now many of the vendors here have shut up shop, and those that remain are surviving on a fraction of the income.
这个整个生意都差很多，一落千丈，对，大概掉了50%以上。
现在很多人都不来花莲玩，然后就说怕来了就回不去啊，因为路就断了。
And fears of blocked roads are not unfounded. Taiwan is prone to earthquakes and typhoons, and those have caused landslides in this area known for its geological marvels. Much of this national park remains inaccessible since last year's quake, and there are no signs of when it will reopen.
整个园区的恢复时间，目前我们没办法估计，因为每年都有一些台风豪雨会影响我们施工进度的一个进行哦。
Hualien's Tourism Bureau is keen to point out that there's more to Hualien than just Taroko Park. The central and local governments have tried stimulating visits through subsidised stays and benefit concerts, but with limited success. Figures from the Bureau say the industry has only recovered by about 30 to 40%, but there's a concerted effort to try new methods to get people back.
比如说，在我们后山，我们后面的一个田地。 我们去种一些传统的植物，把它富裕起来。那些植物，我们以后可以做成一些新的体验的活动。我们现在也有推低碳旅游。低碳旅游就是骑的单车，可以到我们的部落玩，或是到了太鲁阁去走。
Feeling like they have to fend for themselves, business owners like Kiyoshi are doing what they can to diversify. The loss of visitor confidence in the county leaving many here out of pocket and some running out of time. Chris Ma, Jeffrey Chen and Reese Ayres in Hualien for TaiwanPlus.
As oceanic fish stocks around the world continue to collapse, fishing fleets are setting out for remote waters to feed a global appetite for seafood. But their practices could have dire consequences for the planet's climate. A new report from nonprofit Outlaw Ocean Project uncovers the damage being done to a unique, remote ecosystem. Jonathan Kaplan has a story.
You've probably never heard of the Saya de Mala Bank, but this shallow seagrass plateau in the Indian Ocean teems with life. It's a breeding ground for blue and humpback whales, sea turtles, and other threatened species. It is also the ocean's greatest carbon sink, and it is being destroyed. The bank lies off the northeast end of Madagascar in mostly international waters. It is about the size of Switzerland, administered by the small island nation of Mauritius, about 900 kilometers away. This means fishing fleets can operate there with near impunity. But one nonprofit organization is working to document the destruction of this marine ecosystem.
We know that there is an unusual concentration of industrial fishing vessels there, and a huge portion of those vessels are trawlers that are distinctly destructive to the specific thing, seagrass, that makes the Saya de Mala most precious.
That seagrass is precious not only for the habitat it provides for the many species that dwell on the underwater meadow.
It's a big, very important place, largely because of seagrass's carbon capture potential. What seagrass does is pulls carbon out of the water that ended up in the water because the water pulled it out of the air, and then it holds it and it stores it in its roots.
The Saya de Mala Bank is the world's largest known seagrass field. These uniquely adapted plants cover less than 0.2% of the seafloor, but store around 18% of the ocean's carbon.
This is really a silver bullet for climate change. Seagrass does it faster than anything on land, to the tune of 20 to 30 times faster than, say, trees in the Amazon.
In search of fish to feed a hungry human world, fleets of fishing vessels have descended on the area in recent years.
I think what makes it attractive is the biodiversity. You know, it's rich. It's not, you know, much of the world's nearshore stocks have collapsed. Too much fishing, too many fishing boats, and not enough fish close to land. So ships are going further to more exotic places to try to find the best catch. And this is a pretty remote place that hadn't been tapped before a decade ago. But for the last decade, every year, you've been seeing a huge buildup of vessels there.
The unregulated fishing practices around the Saya de Mala Bank are ravaging this rare ecosystem and speeding up climate change. Fleets from Sri Lanka and Thailand have been operating there for years, and so have those from Taiwan.
And the Saya de Mala is a place where there's a huge flow of tuna in that area, but because it's so far historically, other fleets haven't gone there, but the Taiwanese are now.
There are many parties to this destructive process that puts short-term profit above long-term global health. Alex Chen and Jonathan Kaplan for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Be sure to visit the TaiwanPlus website and follow our social media. Finally today, check out these highlights from the training of Taiwan's competitive cheerleading team as they prepare for the World Tournament in the U.S. I'm Joyce. Take care and see you next time.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, follow TaiwanPlus on socials. Pika!